Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be taking you through an absolutely off-the-wall deck. This deck, I mean, I don't know if you can even call it a deck because technically it is 10 decks in one. So how in the world is that possible, and what in the world am I talking about? Well, let's jump into it. Well, okay, actually, before I say that though, this deck is actually very budget friendly, especially when you consider that there are 10 decks in one. Every single card is less than $1, and we'll get to the price breakdown here in a bit. And if you are interested in building this, make sure you check out the link in the description. And now with all that said, now let's jump into it. So the concept for this deck definitely started with this, well, pretty, let's just say, interesting commander. The Prismatic Piper is a 3/3 shapeshifter that costs 5, and it says, if the Prismatic Piper is your commander, choose a color before the game begins. The Prismatic Piper is the chosen color, and it has partner. Now, this commander was literally only created for Commander Legends Draft, and yeah, I mean, there's pretty much no reason to ever run this as your commander. You know, unless you want an off-the-wall deck like this one. Basically, any other commander that has partner, though, obviously is an improvement from this one because, well, all this one does is let you choose your color before the game begins. That being said, that is exactly what I want to do and why I chose the Prismatic Piper, well, and because it's kind of funny, as the commander, or should I say, commanders for this deck because, yeah, okay. Technically, this is not legal, though I think you're going to have a hard time finding someone who's going to be upset with you for trying to run 2 Prismatic Pipers as your commanders. You obviously aren't going to try to gain any kind of advantage, you know, from having these as partner commanders because, again, all they let you do is choose a color before the game begins. That's it. They have nothing else. They are 3/3s for 5 mana, which is pretty terrible. Now, I will say we do have a backup plan, but also, with the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate set, we also got Faceless One, and yeah, I mean, that could also potentially be an option. Again, another illegal option, but yeah, Faceless One says, if it's your commander, choose a color before the game begins. Faceless One is the chosen color, and says choose a background, and of course, Faceless One is a legendary shaman creature background, and again, a 3/3 for 5 mana, so basically, this is the Prismatic Piper version of a background commander. That also is itself a background. Kind of confusing. Regardless, I think pretty much the vast majority of players out there are going to be completely fine with you running both of these as your commander and your background because, again, they're just any other choices would be better. Literally, any other combination. Any combination of choices would be better than these. Now, of course, as a backup plan, if your opponents, you know, say, no, that's illegal, you can't do that, I mean, all you need to do is have the Prismatic Piper and then have these 5 commanders, or again, any other, you know, partner commanders that have a single color, any 5 of them, essentially 1 for each color, on the side and ready to go. And you'd be like, okay, fine, I'll play with Prismatic Piper and one of these. But again, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find players that get upset with you for playing 2 terrible commanders as your partner commanders. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to have a backup plan, and yeah, Kelith, Kedis, Esior, Inara, and Falthis are very, very cheap. Regardless, let's just assume that those that you're playing with are reasonable people. Here is how this 10 decks in one concept works. The concept is actually really simple. You just need to choose 2 colors at random. So you could even just do that through dice rolling. Again, with a 6-sided dice, you could just assign Wooburg to 1 through 5, and then your 6 could either be, you know, you get to select it, or, you know, roll again. And then, of course, on the second roll, you need to take out the color that you rolled in the first roll, because you do need 2 separate colors. Now, once you have your colors selected, they'll be added to your pile of cards that are actually going to be included in every version of this deck. So obviously you've got 2 Prismatic Pipers that are included in every single version of the deck, and then 8 lands are going to be included as well. And these are lands that can obviously legally go in any version of this deck because they do not have a color identity. So Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Mirror Landscape, Ash Barren, Skyreach Sanitarium, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, and Path of Ancestry will be included in every version of the deck. So just, keep them in there. No matter what you roll, they are going to be a part of the deck. And secondly, the other cards that are going to be in every single version of this deck are 10 ramp cards. And of course, first up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble, which is finally budget. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice Wayfarer's Bauble, get a basic land into play, tap. So land ramp for any color identity. And then other ramp cards that are now finally budget as well, underneath $1, are cards like Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Felwar Stone. Next up, we're also going to be running Star Compass, Prismatic Lens, and Mind Stone. And finally, we've got Commander Sphere, Firemind Vessel, and Ever-Flowing Chalice. Now, I will point out that yes, if you do have access to green, if that's one of the 2 colors that you either, randomly choose a roll or whatnot, sure, should you probably have, chosen some cards like Rampant Growth instead of, some of these? Yeah, land ramp is generally considered to be better than, Mana Rocks because it is safer. That being said, for ease of use in building these 10 decks and just to make the concept work better, these 10 ramp cards work for every single version of the deck, no matter what color identity you randomly choose. So in total, again, no matter what color identity you end up getting, you are going to have 20 cards in this deck that stay the same. Again, the 2 Prismatic Pipers, the 8 lands, and the 10 ramp spells. The other 80 cards depend entirely on the random color identity that you get. So let's jump into those different possibilities for the colors that we might randomly roll. Now with 80 cards left, of course, we're going to split that in half, so each random color that is selected is going to have 40 cards dedicated to it, and 15 of those are going to be lands. And for example, obviously we can have lands that can help us out in other ways, like Sejiri Shelter, Anu Inversion, which are MDFC lands. Sejiri Shelter says target creature you control gains protection from the color choice until end of turn, and Anu Inversion says destroy all non-land permanents. Next up, of course, we've got some lands that just, help us by being lands, like Thriving Heath, Citadel Gate, and Plains. Both Thriving Heath and Citadel Gate essentially do the exact same thing. They come into play tapped, you choose a color other than white, and they can tap for white or 1 mana of the chosen color. So these are essentially dual lands that can fit into any color identity in combination with white. Again, one of my main goals of this deck is to make it so you can easily swap between the 10 different versions of the deck. So yeah, technically, yeah, you could say, like, oh, I'm just going to have other, kind of dual lands that can really help me out. But if they do have, 2 pips, they're only for specific color combinations, and that gets a lot more complex, rather than just saying, okay, yeah, this is my pile of white cards, and they fit into any deck, in combination with another color. And then, the rest lands for white can just be plains. Now, with that said, this concept is actually meant to be pretty flexible with whatever you want to do with it. So the cards I'm going to bring up, including these lands themselves, are just, an initial concept that I am building off of. So obviously feel free to, mix and match and choose whatever you want. If you just want the 15 lands of each color to be basics to make it easier to swap out, you can do that. And of course, any of the cards in this episode that you want to swap out, you can do that as well. It's up to you. But when I built the shell for this concept, I broke down each of these colors into how many cards of each type I would like in them, and I would recommend that you, plan ahead as well. So for example, I'm including 5 card advantage cards in each color, and yeah, okay, in mono white, that's a bit tough, but still, we are doing the best we can, so yeah, cards like Rumor Gatherer, Flump, and Mentor the Meek can help us out. Rumor Gatherer says when another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If the second time this ability is resolved this turn, draw a card instead. Flump says whenever it's dealt damage you and target opponent each draw a card, and Mentor the Meek says whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. And then we've got Secret Rendezvous, which says you and target opponent each draw 3 cards, and oh, okay. We're kind of pulling at strings here again. We're in mono white, and again, on a less than $1 budget, Shelter does draw us a card. I don't know if I'd really consider this a card advantage spell, but bear with me, okay? Now, of course, you could utilize a card like Lore Seeker Stone, which I will mention that a lot of mono white decks out there do utilize for card draw, but the thing is, that one is an artifact. And yes, while that is a legal inclusion, no matter what your color identity is, it does make things a lot more complicated when it comes to actually, changing your deck around. The entire concept is for ease of use and being able to switch out one deck and just, switch it to another in a different game. And if you start including artifacts outside of your ramp cards, that can make things a lot more difficult to actually just switch out. Because as you'll see, every single card within these color identities is the color itself, just to make it easier for you to be able to just take them out. If, the first time you're playing this, you roll white and green and you get a Celestia deck, great, grab the green pile, grab the white pile, and then shuffle it all together with those 20 cards. But then when you go to play your next game, say you again roll a green, but then you roll a red, well, now you're in Gruul and you need to take out the white card. So it's a lot easier to take those out if you don't have, artifacts that are part of that white deck. Now, you can go about this concept again however you want. I'm just letting you know how I'm going to be going about it. Now, for each color, I'm also going to be including 5 removal spells as well, and of course, in white, we've got access to plenty of great ones, like, Ablation, Forsake the Worldly, and Crush Contraband. And actually, Ablation is pretty flexible and can actually be utilized for card advantage for us as well. It says the owner of target non-land permanent shelves in their library, then draws 2 cards. And then Forsake the Worldly is somewhat flexible too, exile target artifact or enchantment, and we can cycle it away for 2. Whereas Crush Contraband is going to have us choose one or both, exile target artifact, exile target enchantment. And of course, we've got access to some fantastic wraths as well, like Cleansing Nova, which is going to destroy all artifacts or destroy all artifacts and enchantments, and Akroma's Vengeance, which is going to blow up, well, pretty much everything, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, or we can cycle it away for 3. So yeah, mono white might be lacking in card advantage, but it is definitely not lacking in removal. Now, we've talked about 15 lands in this color, and then 5 card advantage spells and 5 removal spells, so that's 25 cards, and we still need 15 more. And this is where the real fun part of the concept comes up, because yeah, this is really the part where it's just like, hey, whatever cards you want, what are your, your favorite, mono white cards out there that you want to utilize in a deck, just utilize them. So yeah, you like Sun Titan, awesome, use Sun Titan. Sunscorch Regent, that's great. Soul of Eternity even, that can be a really fun card. Now, is this going to be the most synergistic deck ever? No, I mean, you're building 10 decks in one, and it's a very versatile deck that, you're going to be selecting at random, so yeah, it's not going to be the most synergistic deck out there. That being said, obviously in combination with certain colors and certain effects, you're going to find some hidden synergies in there, which can just be really fun. I mean, every single time you play this deck, it's pretty much going to be playing differently. So again, Sun Titan's got a great ETB and attack trigger, and maybe with another color, you've got a way to abuse that, especially like an ETB effect. Or maybe you've got a way to get Soul of Eternity through so you can hit a player for a ton of damage. Regardless, I'm going to go through my inclusions in this color identity really quickly in this section because, yeah, again, pick whichever your favorite cards are that you really want to utilize in the deck. So next up, I'm going to be running cards like Frontline Medic, which can protect my attackers, Avenging Hunt Monitor, which helps them hit for even more, and Duelist Heritage, which, well, also helps them hit for even more, and also, you can use in a political way to give your opponent's creatures double strike as well. Or how about Increasing Devotion, which can make a ton of creature tokens, and then Visions of Glory, which can help us make even more creature tokens, or Blessed Sanctuary, which can help prevent all non-combat damage to be dealt to us and our creatures we control, but also can make us a lot of tokens. Or how about Requiem Angel, Windborn Muse, and Victory's Herald, some flyers that can help us out as well. Requiem Angel itself can actually make even more flyers, Windborn Muse can help protect us, and Victory's Herald can help get our creatures through and help us gain a ton of life. Moving on, how about Unbreakable Formation, which can help protect our team, Storm of Souls, which can get our creatures back, well, and in some way, essentially, and then Dictative Heliod, which is a great Anthem effect that can come out of nowhere. And again, these are just the 15 white cards that I chose, again, for those 15 quote-unquote fun spots in the deck. And actually, it technically is 30 because, obviously you'd have, 15 in one color, 15 in another. So with that said, let's jump into the other colors. So, going in Wooburg order, obviously next up is blue, and yeah, for blue lands, we have, some MDFC lands as well, like Jwari Disruption and Selendii Vision. Jwari Disruption can help us counter a spell, or at least make it cost a little more, and Selendii Vision can help get us some card advantage off the top of our library. Moving on, of course, in blue, we're going to replicate essentially what we had in mono white with Thriving Island Seagate, which again, enters the battlefield tapped, and we can choose a color other than blue and tap for blue in that chosen color, and then the rest lands can be islands. So again, with our 15 lands down, what's next? So if you remember the recipe from the last time, we've got 5 card advantage spells with Factor Fiction, Chemist's Insight, and Hieroglyphic Illumination. Obviously, in blue, you've got access to a lot better card advantage spells than in white. So we can also use Reign of Revelation in Precon and Perception, and yeah, there are plenty of great ways to draw cards in blue. When it comes to removal, we've also got a lot of great removal spells as well with cards like Alchemist Retrieval, Geist Wave, and Unsubstantiate, each of which can bounce things back to their owner's hands. And actually, Unsubstantiate can also bounce a spell back to its owner's hand, so it's kind of like a delay counterspell. And speaking of bouncing things, well, we can bounce a lot of things with Aether Gale, bounce 6 target non-land permanents back to their owner's hands, or River's Rebuke, which is a massive bounce spell, basically a individual Cyclonic Rift, bounce everything one player has back to their hand. Well, okay, non-land permanents, not lands. So yeah, blue again brings to the table a lot of great card advantage spells and some good removal spells too. And it also brings to the table a lot of fun cards, again in our Fun 15, with Anthem Mutineer, Diluvian Primordial, and Reef Worm. Mutineer can help us take some things out and replace them with Salamanders. The Living Primordial can help us cast even more spells from our opponent's graveyards. And Reef Worm, well, essentially every single time it dies, we get a bigger creature, all the way up to a 9/9 Kraken creature token. Or we can obviously get value out of spells as well, like Spell Twine, Inevitable Betrayal, and Mass Diminish. Spell Twine helps us cast 2 things for free. Inevitable Betrayal helps us get an opponent's creature out of their library, which is lovely, and Mass Diminish makes their creatures small. And speaking of creatures, we can make a lot of creature tokens with things like Murmuring Mystic and Tolerant Sky Summoner, and we can actually make a copy of any creature with Clone. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this can be some of that kind of hidden synergy that you can have just randomly between the two colors. I mean, again, Clone can definitely help you take advantage of ETBs, like again, Sun Titans, which we talked about. So, of course, we can also utilize other clones like, Vizier, Many Faces, and Mirror Image, and maybe even a clone spell like Cackling Counterpart, which we can flash back to do it again. Or how about Replication Technique, which can clone essentially anything, and we can do that twice as long as we let an opponent do it as well. And then one of my personal favorite cards, Curse of Echoes, we can throw that in a player, and then everyone gets to cast their instants and sorceries while they do. Or how about Curse of Unbinding, which we can put on a very unlucky player as well, and we get to steal creatures from them with that. But again, with these fun 15, pick whatever you want. Again, since we're in Wooburg order, next up we've got black, and the MDFC we're going to be utilizing in this is Pelika Predation. This can help get something nasty out of someone's hand. And then, of course, also we've got, again, the Thriving Land with Thriving Boar and Black Dragon Gate. Again, those lands that help us get both colors. And of course, the rest of those 15 lands can just be swamps. Next up, of course, we've got 5-card advantage spells, and we've got access to a lot of great ones. Sign in Blood's going to make us draw 2 and lose 2, and Read the Bones says scry 2, then draw 2 and lose 2. And then we've got some more ways to lose life and draw cards with Ancient Craving Inhibition's cost, draw 3, lose 3, and Promise of Power, which will let us draw 5, lose 5. So again, a lot of great card advantage options in black. Moving on, when it comes to removal, we're going to utilize Feed the Swarm, which can destroy a creature or an enchantment, and then Plague Crafter, which when enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, and each one who does not discards a card. Mono Black is obviously very good at taking out creatures, so yeah. We're also going to be utilizing cards like Languish, Hex, and Necromantic Selection to take out a massive number of creatures. Languish is going to give all creatures -4/-4, Hex is going to destroy 6 target creatures, and Necromantic Selection essentially gets rid of every creature, and we get 1 back. So yeah, again, a lot of great ways to take out creatures in this color. And then for our fun 15, I chose cards like Dark Imposter, which can take out even more creatures and utilize activated abilities of those creatures it takes out. Gonti, which can help us steal our opponent's things, and Thieving Amalgam, which also can kind of help us steal our opponent's things by manifesting the top of their library, while also punishing them, for their things being stolen and going away. Next up, we've got Ogre Slumlord, Death Tyrant, and Overseer the Damned, each of which can help make us a lot of tokens throughout the game. And speaking of tokens, we're also going to be utilizing Rise of the Dreadmarn, which can make us a lot of tokens out of nowhere, and then we also have some ways to, well, take our opponent's creatures from them. Rockshock Baser can take them from their graveyard, and it's got Encore, and Gisa can actually take them, well, it exiles and brings them back when they die, essentially, but with Decayed. Anyways, very powerful. And we can also get even more things out of our opponent's graveyards with Dredge the Mire, Boneyard Parlay, and Ghastly Inscription. Dredge the Mire is going to get us 1 creature per opponent. Boneyard Parlay is kind of like a Factor Fiction, but for graveyards, and Ghastly Inscription is going to get us all creatures from an opponent's graveyard into play manifested. Finally, we can even get our own creatures back with Nightmare Shepherd. Butcher Malakir can take out a lot of creatures, or opponent's creatures, whenever creatures die, and Daring Fiend Bonder can help make something indestructible. But yeah, again, a lot of great options for your fun 15 in this color. Moving on in Wooburg order, we are at, of course, red, and we've got an MDFC with Kazul's Fury for one of our lands. Essentially, we can sacrifice a creature to ping something based on its power. And then, of course, like the other colors, Thriving Bluff, Cliffgate. When they enter the battlefield, choose a color. It can tap for red or the chosen color. And then the remaining lands are, of course, going to be mountains. And then, of course, we've got 5-card advantage spells as well with Thrill Possibility, Tormenting Voice, and Cathartic Reunion. Thrill Possibility and Tormenting Voice make us discard 1 to draw 2. Cathartic Reunion makes us discard 2 to draw 3. And then Ignite the Future can be a fantastic temporary card advantage spell that can also be flashed back for a lot of extra value. And Magus of the Wheel, well, is a wheel on a creature. So yeah, some good options in red for card advantage spells. And now for removal, well, red is good at taking out creatures and artifacts, so let's use Abrade and you find some prisoners. Abrade's going to deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact, and you find some prisoners can either be used to destroy an artifact or give us some temporary card advantage. from an opponent's library, which can be quite fun. We can also utilize some damage-based board wipes though with Storm's Wrath, Starstorm, and Sudden Demise. Storm's Wrath can deal 4 damage each creature and each planeswalker, Starstorm deals X damage each creature, and Sudden Demise is a bit more specific, choose a color and deals X damage each creature of the chosen color. But yeah, this can be very effective in a lot of situations. And finally, our fun 15, and my goodness, we have some fun ones. Let's start with Atali, Primal Storm, Backdraft Hellkite, and Terror Mountain Velis. Atali can help us cast things off the top of libraries for free, Backdraft Hellkite can give our instant sorceries in our graveyard flashback until end of turn, and Terror Mountain Velis is going to give double strike to our creatures when it enters the battlefield. We can also utilize cards like Frontier Warmonger, Agitator, and Vengeful Ancestor to mess with our opponent's combats. Frontier Warmonger is going to encourage players to attack our opponents because their creatures gain menace when they do. And then Agitator Ant lets players grow their creatures at the cost of goading them. And of course, Vengeful Ancestor can also goad creatures whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks. In this color, of course, we also have ways to threaten our opponent's creatures and gain control of them for ourselves with cards like Captivating Crew, Molten Primordial, and Mob Rule. Captivating Crew does this on ability, Molten Primordial does this on ETB, and Mob Rule is just a mass effect that can gain control of a ton of creatures, either, small ones or big ones. Next up, we've got ways to copy things. Feld in the Third Path can copy creatures from our graveyard, Rionia can copy creatures that are in play, and Double Vision can copy the first instant sorcery spell we cast each turn. And finally, we've got some other fantastic enchantments that can help us out with Warstorm Surge, Mirror March, and Gratuitous Violence. Warstorm Surge helps us deal damage whenever our creatures come into play, Mirror March can get us extra copies of creatures, and Gratuitous Violence helps our creatures deal even more damage. So again, a ton of fantastically fun options for our Fun 15 in this color. And then finally, obviously, the last in Wooburg is green, and we've got some MDFCs like Tangled Florahedron, which is just a mana dork, and Colony Ambush, which is a fight spell. And then, of course, we've got our dual choice lands, again with Thriving Grove and Manor Gate, and the rest are going to be forests. When it comes to our 5-card advantage spells that we're going to be bringing from green, we're going to be utilizing cards like Harmonize and Shamanic Revelation. Harmonize has us draw 3, and Shamanic Revelation is going to draw us a card for each creature we control, and on top of that, we gain 4 life for each creature we control of power 4 or greater. And then we've got some other creature-dependent draw spells like Soul's Majesty, Hunter's Insight, and Soul of the Harvest. Soul's Majesty is going to draw us cards equal to the power of target creature we control, Hunter's Insight draws us cards based on how much damage a creature deals to a player, and Soul of the Harvest is going to draw us a card with another non-token creature in its battlefield under our control. So green might be a little creature-dependent, but again, we can definitely draw cards with it. And when it comes to our 5 removal spells in this color, we've got a ton of fantastic choices, so we're going to be utilizing cards like Return to Nature, Unravel the Aether, and Beast Within. Return to Nature is going to destroy target artifact, enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. Unravel the Aether is going to make an artifact or enchantment be shuffled into its library, and Beast Within can get rid of anything by giving that player a 3/3. And then we actually have some creatures that can upset as well. For Reclamation Sage, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and Whip Tongue Hydra, which when it enters the battlefield, will destroy all creatures with flying, and we get a counter on Whip Tongue Hydra for each creature destroyed this way. So green is a little lacking when it comes to creature removal for the most part, so yeah, we need to kind of lean on other colors to help. That being said, now my favorite part, the Fun 15, we're going to be utilizing cards like Champion of Lamholt, Scavenging Ooze, and Bio Waste Blob, each of which can become more and more ridiculous throughout the game. Champion of Lamholt's going to grow whenever creatures come into play under our control, and then make it so our creatures are basically unblockable. Scavenging Ooze can also grow and also can really hate on opponents' graveyards, and then Bio Waste Blob can actually just keep making copies of itself, and then make all of our oozes massive. We obviously also have ways to make a lot of tokens. Hornet Queen's gonna make us 4 1/1 death-touching flying insects. Hydra Broodmaster can make us a ton of Hydras, and Giant Adaphage can keep making copies of itself whenever it hits opponents. And of course, we're not quite done with tokens just yet, because Andu Tuskcaller can make 3/3 elephants when it taps. Arasta, the Endless Web, is going to make us spiders whenever opponents cast instant sorceries, and From Beyond is going to keep making us Eldrazi Scions at our upkeep. And we're still not done with tokens just yet, because Tovolar's Huntmaster can make us wolves. Paradox Zone makes us fractals that get bigger and bigger and bigger the further the game goes. And Ochre Jelly is a very interesting one. Essentially, when it dies, it keeps coming back with less and less counters. And then Thorn Mammoth can actually help us deal with creatures. Whenever it and other creature enters battlefield under our control, it's going to fight up to 1 target creature we don't control. Aggressive Mammoth is just going to give all of our creatures trample, and it's a massive threat too. Speaking of which, Dawnglade Region is a massive threat, and when it comes into play, become the Monarch, and as long as the Monarch, our permanents have hexproof. So yeah, again, a lot of fun options in this color for our 15. But now that we've gone through every single card, and yeah, there are 220 cards in this deck. Or maybe, again, I should say combination of decks. However, we're going to say there are 220 cards. Now that we've gone through every single one, let's talk about the price. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, this deck, even though it has 220 cards in it, is very budget friendly. Well, okay, I should say it is more than my usual budgets of around, $25 to $30 or so per deck. But this one, again, is 10 decks in one with an estimated cost of $64.73. So again, if you're taking that on a per deck basis, that's what, like $6 for each deck, essentially? Which is pretty absurd, and actually, that could be even lower because this estimated cost does include basic lands at 10 cents a piece. So if you already have all those basics, well, there's some extra savings there for you. And speaking of extra savings, you might be able to save even more if you buy this deck on TCG Player and utilize heavily played and damaged cards, because of course those cards need a home too. Though that being said, the cost of this deck does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. That being said, I really enjoy the concept for this deck, and I hope you do as well. And again, you can really kind of take this and make it your own and go about things in whatever way you want. And again, with a deck like this, it can play very differently every single game because, again, you're going to be getting different color combinations and then different combinations that you're going to find within those colors and different synergies, and yeah. I just think it's a really fun concept, and I hope that if you enjoyed it, you take this concept and run with it as well and, put the cards in that you want to see. And of course, with that, if you do want to, again, choose actual, partner commanders outside of, the Prismatic Piper, go for it. I still think it's pretty funny, though, to actually take, a quote-unquote useless commander like Prismatic Piper and to make something out of it. And again, I guess I should say this. Make sure you ask your playgroup when you're playing with this if it's okay if you play with 2 Prismatic Pipers, and again, if not, yeah, maybe just have a backup couple of partner commanders, again, like those cheap ones that I mentioned earlier. I believe the ones that I mentioned earlier are in total around like 58 cents or so yeah, it doesn't hurt to have a cheap backup like that. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you, so make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.